Okay, on today's commute, we're actually going to be doing pedal assist today, but we'll be going over pretty much the lyric graffiti and mostly on the belt drive system pretty much that they're using, talking about the different drive systems, not the hub motor necessarily, but like belt versus chain and so forth. Now, when the BBS HD was around, which was many years ago, someone came out with what you call the gated belt system. Now, it was a good system because you can use like a Shimano or Nexus internal gear hub with it. That's where it's very useful, because not only do you get the low maintenance because you're dealing with an internal gear hub instead of a derailleur and group set, but also the fact too that you can actually go ahead and, you know, pretty much not have to do really any maintenance to it at all whatsoever, at least as far as that goes, because you're not having to oil the, you know, clean up the grease and gunk and stuff off the group set, having to clean the chain and then re-oil it and so forth. So, you know, it has its benefits pretty much. And that's the reason why a lot of people went with this gated belt system and stuff. It was a custom belt system, you know, designed really for the BBS HD when the BBS HD was pretty much just coming out. So people, of course, went with that and stuff like that. It's a great belt system, don't get me wrong. Now, the problem with it is that Lyric Graffiti came out with a belt system. And don't get me wrong, it's not a bad idea, but it's only a single gear. There's no internal gear hub pretty much on it. So if you're going ahead and you don't think you're gonna use this and then the battery dies and stuff like that, good luck in pedaling it back. And the reason for that is because it's pretty much just a single gear. There's no, you know, internal gear, because they're obviously using a hub drive instead of a mid drive. A belt system is really good for a mid drive because you can actually go ahead and use, let's just crank it up a little bit, but a belt drive is really good for, like, you know, if you have an internal gear hub, because now you can go ahead and use the internal gear hub to actually do your shifting, which you need. So if you have to climb up a hill and have to go into easy gear, you can do that with an internal gear hub. And depending on what kind of internal gear hub, because they got different ones, of course, will depend on, of course, how good that will perform. Where with a traditional derailleur and thing, you can do the same thing except you're using a chain. Now, one of the main reasons they came out with the belt system was because people were busting a lot of chains originally with the BBS HD, because you didn't have any KMC chains and stuff like that, or even like the offset they weren't doing properly and so forth, and they were breaking a lot of chains. And that's one of the other things I want to go over too. People say that mid drives are unreliable because, you know, chains break and stuff like that. And to be honest with you, I haven't had a chain actually break on any of my mid drives, because I use the KMC chain, and it's also how you shift it too. If you're shifting it during motor power, you're gonna put a lot of torque on the chain, as you see. Same way you don't shift as you're going uphill and stuff like that, because that chain's under a lot of tension and stuff like that. And shifting it to other gears, you're just gonna end up wrecking and pretty much wearing down your group set very quickly, your derailleur else, not just the chain. It's your whole entire group set and stuff, and your drivetrain on the bike. So that's one of the problems. But of course, you could get with the BBS HD shift sensors and stuff like that, and same thing with the, you know, Bafane Ultra, even though you really don't need the Ultra because it uses torque sensing, so it's not as hard, you know, on the chain as like a BBS HD when you're using pedal assist, because it's sensing the torque. As you can see right now, the motor, if you're looking at the display, is only drawing about 250 watts and under pretty much, because I'm pedaling it pretty much just to take it easy. But, you know, that's the thing about it though, is with chains, you gotta be kind of careful with when you add a motor, because you're just putting a lot of extra power on that chain that the chain was never actually really designed for. But thankfully KMC actually made a chain that's pretty much designed for the BBS HD and the Ultras and stuff like that, where it's not as big of a problem, you know. So let's go ahead here. So so they're more durable, they last a lot longer and stuff. And average on those chains, I get about 3,000 miles before having changed one out, which is a lot. And like I said, I never actually snapped a chain on a commute and stuff like that, because I always do my maintenance and stuff like that, which is degrease the chain and then re-oil it and stuff like that every so often, so that way you're not wearing down stuff really quick and you're not wearing down the chain and so forth. And you can check the chain spacing and all that to determine how much wear you have on the chain. But you also got to look at your derailleur and also the group set on your wheel and stuff like that to make sure that, you know, it's not excessive wear on it. But if you do that, it'll last a long time. And to be honest with you, mid-drives are a lot easier to service, because if you get a flat, which is more common, you know, you can easily just pop the wheel off, go and patch your tube and stuff like that, put the wheel back on, you're good to go. When you're dealing with a direct drive, it's a little bit harder, because even though some bikes have the quick disconnects, I find a lot of time those wires are undersized as far as gauge go. And what happens with the quick disconnects is those connectors actually melt together. I'm not kidding. They'll actually fuse themselves together and stuff like that. And now you have to either cut the cable off or just do it with the cable still connected and remove the wheel to go and get the tire and stuff like that off. And on the more powerful bikes, you have to take the whole bike essentially apart to get to the controller, disconnect the phase and the actual Hall sensors and all that, to go ahead and pull the wire through so you can get the wheel off. So that's one of the cons about having a hub drive, whether it's hub or direct drive, you know. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you're dealing with mid-drive like this. If I get a flat, it's gonna be a few minute deal where all you gotta do is take the wheel off, go and patch the tube or put a new tube on there, and I'm back in business. Where with a direct drive and hub drive, it's gonna take a little bit longer depending on how new and old the bike is and stuff like that, of course. And if it's using a quick disconnect, and that quick disconnect, you know, has a melter. Now if they're using the proper gauge on that quick disconnect, it's not so much of a problem. But most of the time they don't, because you only got a limited amount of space that's going to the actual axle, and to fit the Hall sensor wires and the actual phase wires, those cables are typically, or at least the gauge of the wire in the cable is too small to handle the current that motor's putting out. And typically they tend to fuse over time because it gets really hot and they melt, and then you won't be able to separate those connectors when you need to. That's one of the common problems that I find a lot with pretty much hub drive on bikes essentially. Now of course some people will do custom and actually built their own, and what they do is they separate the phase and the Hall wires, and they run the Hall wires to the other end of the axle as they drill through the axle to go and push the cable through, or they run it Harless without no Hall sensors at all and use a learning controller, so that way they don't even need the Hall wires at all, period. But then of course it's not gonna ride as smooth if you do it that way. So one of the things that you gotta be careful with. But back to the subject on the belt drive though, yeah, the Lyric Graffiti has a belt drive, but it's not actually a good one. That's the problem. The problem is you don't got no, you know, internal hub where you can actually switch gears and stuff, because it's using a direct drive hub motor back, so you can't put one on there. So therefore it defeats the whole entire purpose of even putting a belt drive on the thing in the first place, because the whole reason for, like on the BBS HD, put an internal, you know, hub with a belt drive was so that way you're not snapping chains, and also 2, low maintenance, and then 3, you know, you still have the ability like a derailleur to shift gears, like if you go up that hill that's coming up right now, for example. You know what I mean? And you need that, you know, huh? So I don't get why. But yeah, either way it goes, that's just how it is pretty much. And like I said, I'm actually pedaling this most of the way myself, so you know, because I kind of want to enjoy the ride. But other than that though, you know, huh? So putting a belt drive on a hub bike is actually pointless, to be honest with you, because you're not gonna get the benefits of it. The only benefit you'll get is that, yeah, sure, you won't have to deal with chain, but then you also lose your gears too. So if your battery dies, you're screwed essentially. You're not gonna be able to pedal that bike, especially a 90-pound plus bike, up any hills or slopes and so forth. So it kind of actually defeats the purpose of having, you know, a belt drive on that bike. I think it's funny that they did that. Now we're gonna go over one of the other common problems that I noticed, because people have been receiving their lyric graffiti, and it's exactly as I thought. The thing only pulls about 1800 watts continuous power. That's what people are reading on the readout on the display on the bottom. That is pulling anywhere from 16 to 18 continuously, and there were several people that actually confirmed that. So it's exactly as I thought that it would, just from obviously doing the math, which you can do yourself. I'll just wait. But you know, it's exactly as I thought. You know, that bike can't do 2500 watts, and I knew that already just by doing math essentially, and what the controller can put out and stuff like that. That bike was not able to put out. So they also over exaggerate the specs. And thankfully, some people, even the very people that were arguing with me, actually came back to me and said, yeah, you are 100% right. This bike can't go up no hills or nothing, and it's only pulling 18 something watts and 16 on the most times. So same people that were arguing with me that were for Lear came back once they received the bike and told me this. So that tells you right off the back that it is, because these are people that were defending them. But I knew that already, because it's not easy. Just look at the components they use, the cells they're using, do the math, and you'll figure it out for yourself. It doesn't take a rocket science essentially to figure it out, you know what I mean? So that's the thing about it is, and you know, they fool a lot of people, because a lot of people are not gonna do the math and stuff like that. You know, that's the problem. And that's what they're hoping for, is that people are just gonna assume it is what it is, and that, yeah, it can do the specs and so forth. But it doesn't. And here I'm just doing throttle because it's much more easier. Because this is a really steady incline and stuff like that. And I got it on 5th gear, so obviously it's not gonna do top speed, but whole point is just to get up the hill and go back down, which is what you would want your Leary to do. The problem is the Lyric Graffiti can't get up to speed fast enough to be able to do this. That's the problem when you're going on a steady hill. And let's just go and put it on low gear so we can get more speed. Go on this last gear. And you know, I'm over 200 pounds, so to get 28 and stuff like that on this with this group set is actually pretty good. But that's typically what you would expect from, you know, a mid drive essentially. Now I can go up to dirties and so forth, because I have gotten up to 30 and so forth, but I'm also using Logan brakes on this brake, the same ones that Lyric Graffiti are using on their bike essentially. You can hear how quiet that is. That's the way it's supposed to be, you know, huh? Okay, I didn't mean to shift that hard, but you know, huh? Let me go go back over here. But you know, that's one of the problems is that they kind of, you know, great. Let me make sure she ain't gonna pull out. Thank you. But that's one of the things, you know, is that you want your bike to be able to pull uphill easy and mainly to go fast off the take, because if you have to cross a large intersection from a dead stop, you want that bike to be able to go, you know what I mean? And that's the problem with the Lyric Graffiti. It can't, you know what I mean? And then if you try to take it on a long continuous incline, forget it. It even gets worse, because, you know, the fact that you can't, you know, be able to climb. And there's people that have, like I said, done it on parking lots and stuff like that, have a slope, and they couldn't get over that slope without existence and stuff like that from a dead stop. And that's the problem with the Lyric Graffiti. You know, it's kind of dangerous. The other design flaw I noticed is they're not actually using a battery blender or a switch. And I don't gotta tell you, bad things can happen with that, because essentially what they did was they tied two batteries together in parallel. Even though, yes, they're same capacity and stuff like that, you know, most people are not gonna know, okay, to use the batteries at the same exact time and so forth. So if you're actually going ahead and, you know, discharge one battery that's a lot lower than the other battery and decide to turn on the battery, what's gonna happen is that one battery essentially is gonna try to equalize the other battery, because it's gonna see that's at a lower voltage, and it's gonna, you know, essentially go ahead and try to charge it up. And the problem with that is it's gonna try to charge it up at full rated current, and these cells are only made to handle, you know, a certain amount as far as, you know, discharge goes and stuff like that. So that's a problem that I see it's gonna happen, and it's gonna cause the battery pack to essentially fail. But this concludes this rant. Next video, I'm actually gonna go into like tools needed for building a battery pack. I'm gonna go over IR meters and chargers as far as testers go for capacity testing and so forth. So stay tuned, that video will be coming up very soon, and wish the best of luck to everyone. Actually, I take that back on the brakes that this thing uses. This uses actually the better Bencal brakes. I thought it was Logan. The one that had the Logan brakes was actually my 5,000 watt bike, and that one failed for the same reason the guy showed in his videos, where it was doing a lot of squealing and stuff like that. And the reason why it did a lot of squealing is because the Logan brakes, what happened was it was actually leaking mineral oil through the seals over time and stuff like that, causing it to contaminate the brake pads and stuff. And it was the same failure that I actually had on my 5,000 watt bike, which I now upgraded to dual quad piston calipers instead of the dual and stuff like that, because those brakes ended up failing. This bike here actually uses the Bencal brakes, which are much better, and I kind of confused the two because I had that 5,000 watt with the Logan brakes. But like I said, I can see the battery being a failure point on the Lyric Graffiti stuff. There's already a couple people that stated that, you know, that their battery pack went up in smoke and stuff like that. Now I'm not sure how legitimate those claims are and so forth, because I haven't seen no pictures, but there was a couple different people. But we'll see in time, I guess. That's probably the best way to judge, and maybe someone will actually provide pictures and stuff like that, or a video showing the battery pack if they are failing like that. But I could definitely see it being the problem, the fact that they're running it actually in parallel without no blender, because blenders are not compatible with regenerative braking. So they had to be running a blender, because there's no, I mean without a blender, because there's no AB switch and stuff like that. So I can see that being a failure point essentially, but we'll find out in time and so forth. Hopefully they don't fail, but you know, that's one of the problems is you can't draw, you know, essentially have two batteries in parallel, even though they're the same capacity, because a lot of people are gonna accidentally forget to switch one on, or they might switch one on when the other one dies and forget to turn the other one off and so forth, so they won't be at the same state of charge, and that one battery is going to dump all its current to try to charge the other battery, and then that's when failures will actually happen and so forth, because they're only made to be charged at a certain current. And if you go over that current limit, well, I don't gotta tell you, bad things are going to happen. So this concludes the video.